report was so good. Now I'm really looking.
I'm open.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's chat again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you again.
All right, so we have today on the San Diego Hoops Report Zoomcast, we have Coach Pat Moromarco from Vista. Pleasure to have you. I'm excited to have you with us today. You were on the list of coaches that, just doing a little bit of background research on you and talking to people in the community. You were another one of those guys that everybody said you need to get him on there. So I'm excited that we could have you on here and talk a little hoops today. I always like to start with where your journey started. So typically I want to know where the person's basketball journey started, but looking at your background and your bio, I want you to just tell me how you got into coaching in general, because it's kind of the basketball part kind of comes in a little bit later.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting story. I wasn't kind of expecting that question, but believe it or not, back in the day in the 70s, and I don't think it moved until about 84, 85, but girls basketball was played in the spring and softball was played in the winter. So again, as a senior in high school, I went to Fallbrook High School. Again, believe it or not, I didn't play basketball. I just played around, but I didn't play on the team or anything. But I played football and baseball, and our football coach was our athletic director. He was also our softball coach, and I was a decent baseball player. He asked me to help him coach the softball team in the winter. I said, sure. So me and another football player, another receiver baseball guy, helped him coach. And I kind of like this. It seemed pretty good. Well, he didn't tell me at the time, but he noticed some tendencies or some abilities maybe that I could be a decent coach. So after my senior year of high school, I was going to go on to play baseball at the junior college level. And I had injured my shoulder and I couldn't play at least for a year. And he asked me to come and scout football games for him. And I started scouting. And again, back in the day, this is 1982, 83. So there wasn't an internet. You didn't exchange, files, games, that kind of stuff. You actually had to go film games. And before you started filming, we actually scouted on a card, a 5x7 card that had, they all came with alignment on it. So you had a box for the center and two circles by the guards. And then you drew in the receivers and backs, all that kind of stuff. So he took me with another coach to scout a scrimmage for football. And it was the strangest thing because after literally 5 or 10 minutes, I had it down. I was writing things down because at first he was calling formations and telling me what it was. And after like the second series, I said, I got it. And he's like, what do you mean? And I had it drawn already. And as he started telling me plays, I'd had those drawn and I could see things, and he's like, wow, okay. So I started scouting and I asked him after I scouted a full year, I think I want to coach. I'd really like to do that. And so I started coaching. This was at Fallbrook High School, by the way. I coached freshman football, I think, for a year. And then I went right to the JV staff and was there for about 6 years. One of the assistants JV coaches was our head girls basketball coach. And he needed a JV coach. And at that time, Fallbrook had a really good basketball program for the girls. I said, gosh, I'd love to do it. And believe it or not, at first he had reservations because he said, because we had a good time coaching football. We had a great time. He said, well, you'll get me screwing around and we'll have too much fun. And, this is my varsity job. I can't do that. I'm like, oh, no. I promised him, no, I'll take this serious. I really will. And I got in there and I liked it from the start. But there was two huge games that kind of really turned me into wanting to be a basketball coach with the girls. Again, by this time, it's 1987, 88. And like I said, Fallbrook had a pretty good team. At the time, Vista High School, believe it or not, had a 6'4" player, Chris Enger, who went on to play at USD and then in England for 3 or 4 years professionally. But in 1987, 6'4", that's like 6'7" or 6'8" right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Because a big girl was 5'11" at that time.
Mm-hmm. Still, that's a post.
Yeah. Well, we thought we had a big team because we had a 6-footer, a 5'11", and 5'10" starting. And then, like I said, this girl, Chris, was an incredible player. And they were in our league, obviously, so we had to play that. Well, not so obvious, but anyway, they were in our league, and we played them, and we had to come up with something to stop Chris, you know. And we ran a triangle in two. We guarded the point guard man to man, and then we face guarded Chris everywhere with a 5'10" girl. Just stood her, looked her face to chest, basically, arms up, you know, everywhere she went and all that. And we ended up losing the game. It was 39-37, but incredible game. Just great. And I was getting really fired up about that. And also at that time, Point Loma had the top program, one of the top in the state. They won 4 straight state championships. And we were very lucky to, again, with the same team, we had a good group of girls, obviously. We snapped their I can't remember, it was 87 or 88 game win streak. It was up at Fallbrook, which their old gym was a tough place to play. It only had one side of bleachers. There was a stage on that side. It was kind of small and could get loud in there and all that. And we played great. It was incredible. Again, it was like a 41-39 game, something crazy like that. And I mean, as I'm talking about it, honestly, the hair's coming up on my arms thinking about it. But I said, oh, I want to coach basketball. This is fun.
That was that moment for you, huh?
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah. And coincidentally, I believe it was 87. It could be wrong, could be 88, but that's the first year of the 3-point shot for girls.
Okay.
Guys didn't have it the first year. And yeah, and I took to it right away. I loved it. We had a girl who made 10 threes out of like 30, no more than 35 attempts. And she was like 5th in the county or something like that.
Yeah. He's like shooting too much back then, right?
Yeah. People thought we were crazy. You had one girl shooting that many. That's more than one a game, you know? It's like, and I loved it. We got to even do more of this, you know? And so that got me hooked on basketball, and I was coaching basketball and football that whole time. And then in the summers, I tried to work basketball camps, you know, because club stuff wasn't where it's at today.
Yep.
You know, so you had summer leagues, and the summer league was small though. I mean, we were North County, so it's probably but again, North County at that time was 14 teams. So that's all the schools that were up here at that point. May have been even 12 in 87, 88. But so we played summer league, and pretty much everyone played in it, but you played, I don't even know if we played everybody once. You had 10 or 12 games in the summer. I don't recall tournaments in the late 80s at that time. But anyway, so I'd work camps. I tried to do camps where I could. And I got to meet Joe DiMaria, who was the coach here at Vista at the time. And we got along really well, worked a couple camps together. And then he stepped away from coaching, and he recommended to his administration that, you know, I be the guy. So I was just finishing up my teaching credential. I started subbing, and I interviewed at Vista, and I got the job. And for the first year, I was a site sub. I wasn't even a full-time teacher, but I wanted to run the program here. I thought there's a lot of advantage. Here's what's kind of funny to me too. RBV was built in 87. So Vista just split. Vista went from being about 3,500, 3,600 students down to about 1,700. And so when I came, talking to the current athletic director at that time, and looking at the area, and I thought we could get big again. We could get maybe 2,200. That's what I thought. 2,200 might be big. And so I came here and took the job as a site sub, obviously. By the end of the first year, I was teaching 4/5, and by the end of the second year, I was teaching full time, and I was coaching football, basketball, and track actually. And I just loved it, and it was a great opportunity to work with Coach Haynes, a legendary football coach in this area, and our stadium's named after him, everything. And he was a great resource to talk to about things too, obviously. You know, and it just, I'll just go one more story about that time. So my first day, I take over in the spring, and I'm gonna get ready for summer league, and I have 12 or 13 girls in the gym, and I've got 2 legitimate players for sure, and just a bunch of kids, and I only know those 2 kids because I coached against them the year before. In the first day, we're doing dribble drills and passing. I'm trying to get some skill evaluation, and balls are flying all over the gym. I mean, it's like, oh, I literally went home and banged my head on the wall. What did I get myself into? So what am I doing? But it was funny because I after I did that, I said, well, who's going to fix this? Mm-hmm. I'm the coach. That's my job. So I got to get out, start recruiting kids on campus, and I've just got to work with what we have, So it was crazy, except, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just say that first summer, so I got us in the summer league, and doing that. And I'd have games where we had one game with only 5. We had a couple games with 6 and 7. But when I'm saying 6 or 7, I'm talking about like 3 varsity players and 4 kids who've never played or freshmen, that first year. I was like, whoa.
Mm-hmm. It's enough to have a roster, not necessarily 7 or 8 actual, players.
Correct.
So I want to go back because looking at your bio, you mentioned baseball, you mentioned football. I saw that you played those sports in high school, and you mentioned, playing baseball, aspirations to play collegiately. Did you play like basketball for fun in high school, or did you play competitive basketball?
I played for fun, kind of some rec leagues and stuff. And hindsight's easy. I wish I would have stuck with it. As far as competitively, but I just loved baseball at that time. Just really loved it. And I played baseball all the time as much as I could. At that time, there was actually winter leagues. Well, kind of like now, there just wasn't travel.
Yeah.
And I got into a summer league, and I was playing baseball all the time.
Yeah,
that was definitely my sport.
My first love as well. I always tell people I always thought I was going to be a Major League Baseball player, and then I got tall, and somebody gave me a basketball, and I kind of never looked back. Yeah. So my mom always used to say, I wish she wishes I would have stuck with baseball because she said I was better. I'm like, I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but but it's just interesting that obviously you discovered a passion for coaching early. Yeah. When did you think that, I'm trying to find the time frame where you seem to be really focused on, you did a lot of high level football, part of a CIF championship from what I read. So how did the basketball thing, just by accident?
Well, it kind of was because, like I mentioned, Jerry Port was his name. The guy was coach said, hey, I need a guy, and I said, I'll help you. And I just kind of fell in love with it. Those 2 games, the gym was packed, people were screaming, and it was exciting. It was right there. And I actually had my hands, right on it, where in football, I still loved it. The only reason I stopped coaching football is when I became athletic director. I just way too many things to do. But I saw a chance to be a head coach. I really wanted to run my own program, and I saw opportunities here, obviously at Vista when the job came up, that was there. And Coach Haynes had asked me to be the head JV coach for football. And I said, not my first year, I've got a lot of things going on. And it was great because we ended up, our head coach that I worked for JV football, that was Chris Hauser, who's now at Mission Hills and obviously been incredibly successful, so worked with Chris for 3 or 4 years on the coaching there. And then I was actually the AD that hired him as our head football coach, before Mission Hills opened. So I've worked with some really, really good coaches. That's another thing that's just been a blessing, and it's regret's a strong word, but it's the one thing I miss about being the AD, that I don't have the, like some older experienced guys to look up to and talk to all the time, because now that's turned into me. Even when I started younger age, but that's different. But so now I just got to reach out.
That was my next one. So as a brand new coach with not a whole lot of actual playing experience, what was that like in terms of, coming up with what your philosophy was going to be? Was it clinics? Was it studying? How did that how did that metamorphosis kind of come into play where you kind of have your style, your structure, kind of what you wanted to do?
Clinics and studying. I was just a voracious reader at the time, and going to clinics, just whatever it took. I mean, within a week or two of getting the Vista job, there was a clinic in Vegas, and me and one of the Fallbrook boys coaches, assistant coach, we drove to Vegas to see Paul Westhead speak. You know, in that time, 1990, that's when he was running, you know, he was running the system, and I couldn't get enough of him, you know. And then I found out that John O'Neill, you know, the men's coach at Palomar now, was the boys coach at RBV, and he was actually running the system. And I gave him a call, and I'd never met John. I called him up and asked him. He says, "Come on over and watch practice and talk." And I watched his team work out, and he sat down with me for like 2.5, 3 hours and just drew up everything, told me what I need to do, this and that. You know, it was incredible, and I just couldn't get enough of that stuff.
And when you were doing this is, like you said, in the 90s. Not a lot of people are doing that. Not a lot of people are playing that at that pace, shooting a 3-ball like that. So, was that something that was there pushback, maybe from, you know, players, parents, anybody was just trying to do something new? Was there any kind of pushback with that?
No, believe it or not, because I hear that a lot. People ask that, and no, as I follow these people who run the system now, you know, in the colleges, and they say that's a big detriment. And I've never had that. I've been very lucky. I get a lot of coaches telling me, whether they beat us or we beat them or whatever, pregame, like, you're crazy. You shoot 1,000,000 threes. You guys go 100 miles an hour, you know. I've always loved that fast-paced game. I think it's more fun for the kids. I honestly believe shooting the 3 and playing fast, you could beat anybody on any given night. You can lose too. I mean,
great equalizer.
Yeah, I agree that maybe since I've coached so long, you know, a handful of times we've shot ourselves out of games. I'm sure that's happened, you know. But I know we've won probably at least one game a year we wouldn't have won without it. You know, you shoot enough, you're going to have bad nights and miss a bunch, you know, and you're going to have nights where it doesn't stop going in. A real quick, 3-4 years ago, I had a pretty good team, and I was talking to, all of a sudden I can't think of his name. Jake used to be the coach at Del Norte. And Jake's telling me, "Oh no, you got to run this. You got to be structured. You got to, you know, change your game plan every week, who you're playing." I'm saying, "Nope, Jake, we're going to play fast. We're going to shoot a lot of threes. And in the long run, that's going to be better for us." He says, "Oh no." And we get along really well. So we talked all the time. He was always getting on me. And we talked like Thursday morning at that Christmas tournament that the San Diego Prep Classic. The games were at his gym, so we had a long talk before we played. And then on Friday night, we played, oh my gosh, I can't remember who we played. It was an out-of-town team, but we smoked them. We hit 17 at I think it was 44 threes. And we just couldn't, and we didn't really miss until like the third and fourth quarter. It was just crazy how they were making them. And I texted him actually that night immediately. "We will never stop playing this way because the way we shot tonight, you know."
And it's a style that, you know, it's funny you mentioned the Paul Westhead, because I remember, I actually still have the video of the game when they beat Michigan. It's one of my favorite games ever to watch. Because, you know, to be locked in, and what you see is that kids enjoy playing that way. They want to play fast. You get them tired, so they need subs. You got to play a lot of kids.
Yep.
And the confidence of knowing that I'm going to shoot. The thing I hate more is a kid shoots a 3, he misses it, she misses it, she's looking to the sidelines. And you end up playing the results games of a good shot means a good shot, it went in, a bad shot means it didn't go in. And nothing could be further from the truth. You can make bad shots and you can miss good shots. So I think I'm right there with you. I just think, you know, if you overly structure it, you know, you may win a possession or two here or there, but in the long run, like you said, you're better off in the long run. Not to mention, that's a style no matter what your personnel is, right? I mean, obviously you need kids that can shoot it, but you can't run a post-based offense if you don't have a post, right? So even if you have, and I've always been with teams that have been small. So I've always been I grew up a Don Nelson fan, so it was always like the positionless basketball, even before it was in vogue like it is now. So I'm right there with you. You got to play fast and you got to get those shots up. I remember, I don't know, one of my earliest coaches used to always say the most important stat is field goal attempts, because if you don't shoot it, it's not going to go in. So I'm right there with you. So go ahead.
I was going to say, it's called basketball. The ball's got to go in the basket. Mm-hmm. It drives me nuts that people are, defense. You do got to play good defense. I'm not saying that. But if you don't score, you're not beating anybody.
Mm-hmm. And it's my last, this coming off this past season, because we couldn't score, we had to muck the game up. And like you said, defense helps, but at the end of the day, we would have too many stretches where you can't score. And, I come from the Marlon Wells school, the Chris Crow school of, you got to score, because, the other team is going to score, and eventually there's going to be those droughts. And when you have those long droughts, it seems like you can never get out of them. Has your style changed a lot? I mean, you've been doing this a while. Has it changed a lot obviously it's changed, but has it been more tweaks, or has it been any, would you say, fundamental changes from how you are now to when you first started, in the 90s?
I would say, because I was going to say more adjustments, but tweaks, than anything. And when I did take that little break in there from being a varsity coach, when I came back, I said one thing I was going to do is we're going to shoot more as far as practice goes. And as best I can, I'm going to try not to ever tell a kid not to shoot. And some people think that's crazy. And obviously there's kids who don't shoot as well. But I believe by the way we practice them, they understand shot selection. We get to that point where, still good years, bad years, whatever. The biggest problem I have is getting kids to shoot. Mm-hmm. Certain kids, you got to shoot the ball. I've got two kids, when you first said that, come to mind, two of the nicest, greatest kids I've ever coached, off the court, on the court, defensive players, because that's what they feel confident with, but shoot. And they both had games. The one girl hit 4 shots in a row, barely even touched the freaking net, and she doesn't shoot the next 3 times she touches it. I mean, what are you doing? She goes, I'm afraid I'm going to miss. I go, you're on fire. My gosh. And another girl this year, she made 3 in a row. Same thing. So shoot the dang ball. I don't care what happens. Shoot it.
I think the most upset that I got with a player, again, this is year 1 for me, was my freshman point guard. And if she's watching this, she'll know she struggled to shoot the ball. Mm-hmm. And it was a game early in the season, and she says, do you want me to stop shooting? And I said, don't you ever ask me that again. I said, your job is to shoot, you shoot. And it's a mindset. And again, having been around Marlon, and it's not even with the kids that, the program we had when I was with them there, it's not even a question. Like, they know they're going to shoot. They know they're going to get in trouble if they pass up open threes, because, that's the game. And even sometimes, like when I would coach my kid, I would tell her, if they're playing off you, you have to shoot just to keep them honest. Even if you feel like you don't have it going, the shot is what keeps the defense off, honest, what keeps the floor spread. So if you're not shooting, they're backing up, the whole floor gets clogged. So I can't agree with you more on the importance of you gotta get those shots up. Who would you say are some of the other your other big influences, not necessarily just basketball, just in coaching in general?
Well, my first one was actually Vince Lombardi, from football, but I carried a lot of things over he did into basketball, the discipline and the thing, just repetition. Coach Haynes was great with that. He always told us the first law of learning is repetition. You need to get those reps in and do it.
Absolutely.
That was huge. But I always, and maybe someone told me, I don't remember who said this to me, but I think someone told me that if you're going to be the best, you got to see what the best is doing, and when I first got hired, I actually called Peggy Brose. They just opened RB, and she was from Mount Carmel, and she already won a couple titles there and that. And I asked her about running the program, and she was awesome. She talked to me for like 2 hours that day and gave me everything I could use, At that time too, obviously, Tennessee was doing awesome. I went and saw Pat Summitt a couple clinics, and I went back to Tennessee to watch him practice. And that was incredible. Later in the 90s, I went Tara Vanderveer had a coach's academy at Stanford. So I spent 4 days and 3 nights up there. Incredible. You know, and then 4 years ago, my latest foray has been going back to Connecticut to watch UConn and Gino. Unbelievable. And especially Gino, and Tara emphasized too, because Pat was always known, Coach Summit, I should say, I don't know her, but, you know, was always known as a defensive player, but she said you had to score. But Tara Vanderveer was very much offense. You got to have it. And Gino was totally offense. Mm-hmm. He says defense is their secret. You know, it's kind of a secret what they do. But to see them practice is unbelievable. It was really nice. And I've always gone to, when Beth Burns was at San Diego State, I went to a lot of practices. One of my players played for her. I worked all her camps all the time. That was great. Corey Close, who's at UCLA now, was at Santa Barbara. And they recruited a couple of my players. So I met Corey and her assistant Tony back in the mid 90s. And when they came to UCLA, I was heading up there all the time. I've taken my team, the team camp up there now, but I go watch practices and they're incredible. Come on in, video, picture, whatever you want. And they'll talk to me. I'm
so much energy. Corey has so much energy.
Oh, and always positive.
Always. Oh
my gosh. Real quick, when she took the job, they did the team camp. I hadn't seen her. So this is 2014, I think. I hadn't seen her since like 1999.
Wow.
And in 1999, I had no facial hair. I had long black hair, all dark hair. And I come up there and my head's shaved or buzzed like I had been keeping it for a long time, and a goatee and all that. And Tony looks at me funny. Are you the Vista coach? And oh, Pat, hey. Corey comes up to me from across the gym and gives me a big hug. And before I say a word, says, Pat, how you doing? I said, you recognize me? And she goes, I knew it as soon as you walked in the room. I recognize you. I'm like, wow. And
it's not hard to understand why she has success when you hear stories like that.
Her energy is amazing, because when I get up to those, there's the last couple of years, there was 70 teams at that camp. It was just huge. And she comes right up to me and says, hi. And the girl's like, Coach. And she always says, oh, this is one of our teams. You know, you guys are family here with me. I've known Coach forever. And, you know, and she's just incredible. So totally she's a big inspiration, especially how she just deals with people more than anything.
Yeah. I had the pleasure of going on a visit with a player at the time, and I was blown away. Just the energy, the passion. I love the way, the reverence she has for the history of the program. You know, and she was. I remember she was telling us the stories about how much she cherished her time spending time with Coach Wooden when she had first got there, and just picking his brain. And you know, somebody could tell you a story, and it's not. You could feel it, and I could just really feel her passion for not just the program and the sport, and just the really got a sense for how much she cherished those moments spending time with the legendary coach.
Right. Yeah. If I ever talk X's and O's with her, or when I get to, Coach Wooden comes up almost every single time.
Yeah. Which is smart. So I wanted to touch on this past year, you won a very prestigious award, the CIF Model Coach Award. Outstanding honor. Kind of tell me about how that went, and how you felt, and reflect on that a little bit.
Well, it's real interesting because CIF sends things out to the admin at each school every year for nominations for that stuff. Well, as athletic director, I see that as well, but I can't nominate myself. Our water polo coach, Dave Spence, is outstanding. I nominated him last year. He got it. We didn't have anyone currently to go. So, and honestly, I kind of filed it away. I was told later, one of our APs said he nominated me, and then hadn't heard anything forever. And it was right before, probably sometime in February, they announced that I got it, and I hadn't heard anything yet. And actually, Steve Brand called me, writing an article for the paper.
Yeah.
And I said, Steve, I know you're not one to make jokes about this, but is this real? Because no one's told me this yet. He goes, oh, yeah. It was, he sent it to me. It was actually the state CF put out an announcement about this press release yesterday. I said, really? wow. So while we're on the phone, his email comes, I see it. I go, oh, this is awesome. This is great, you know. But I asked my admin about it, and no one had notified them yet. I called John Labita, who was still, you know, in office at CIF. He said, oh, yeah, great. Congratulations. I said, you didn't know? And he goes,
He didn't know either.
well, he goes, the state chooses this, not the
That's
section.
right. Yeah.
So I was like, wow. So that really hit me. That's quite an honor. That was really cool. Definitely a kind of a lifetime or career achievement award, you know. And then to look at names on the list who's gotten that, you know, in the past, it's huge. So yeah, that was really cool. That was really nice.
So I think, you know, you have a ton of experience. So, you know, it's probably going to be the opposite feeling of the award. But I'm interested to know, what would you say, you know, over the course of your coaching career would be maybe your biggest challenge that you faced as a coach?
Biggest challenge. Well, probably keeping things fresh and trying to get better all the time. The time I took off wasn't because I was burnt out on basketball. It was just real quick. I was head basketball coach for 12 years, but I became athletic director after 7 years. So for 5 years, I was basketball coach and AD, and we were. Mission Vista hadn't opened yet, so we were very big. We were well over 3,000 students. We were very successful with especially football, our men's basketball. I mean, I was a busy guy all year round. Not to mention, we had some real good years too for my team. So it really just kind of started wearing on me. I need to. It's not fair for me not to be able to give 100% to the girls, the basketball. So I took a little time away, and that really energized me a lot too. You know, I was like, okay. Now I can kind of look from afar. I got out, went college practices. I watched some other high school guys practice. And I said, you know, next time there's an opening, I'm hiring myself back. And that's what I am doing. And now that's what it is. I try to find some things, that I need to work on individually, but then what can I do to get better, just to help the kids themselves, you know, on what they're doing, you know? And like I said, I'm real lucky that we have a few great coaches on our campus that, like our water polo coach I mentioned, Dave is fantastic. But I know how much you watch water polo, but it's basketball in the water. I mean, the X's and O's are anyway, you know. And we've talked about some things, bounce ideas back and forth. And you talk about someone who's got the passion for their sport. This guy, he's been our coach this was his 21st year, and he's as fired up as he was the first year. But I mean, he's also back-to-back 2-time state champion the last 2 years. And but that's because he does a great job. I mean, we don't have a pool on our campus, and he wins year after year, you know.
Nice. That's very impressive.
Yeah, no, he's incredible. So he's one guy that motivates me all the time, inspires me. Probably a better way of putting it. We've had some great football coaches and great program here. So, I mean, our basketball boys, you know, I'm not lacking for motivation typically.
That's good. So what would you say, over the course of your time, what would you say are some of the biggest differences in the game now versus when you first started, in terms of maybe players, maybe, I mean, obviously you talked about the geography is a whole lot different in terms of the number of schools you're competing with, but what would you say are some of the biggest differences between now and then?
Yeah, it's funny. Jay Truesday and I'll talk about this probably once a year. I think the range isn't as far apart between the best and the worst team anymore. It's a lot more compact. But he and I both say some of our teams in the 90s were as good as any team that's been around lately. There were some really good teams then, as there are now. There's just more good teams now. I mean, that's really, I think, what it is. And the explosion of girls basketball from probably the 2005 or 6 or so, the last 10, 15 years has been exponential compared to what it was before. I mean, as you know, the top teams, their kids, if not all of them, are playing club. And through the 90s, that was a rarity. We were all kind of homegrown teams, but that's just made it bigger and better. You know, the more kids, these kids come with experience now that you can't believe. I mean, it used to be not uncommon, but still a little rare for a freshman to start on varsity girls. Now it's not especially for the good teams. They're looking at those kids, you know, So that's probably the biggest thing. The range has gotten much tighter, and there's many more good teams and good coaches too. The coaching's picked up quite a bit.
Yeah, that's the thing. I always tell people, having been here 8 years or so, and having coached in other areas, it's a real coaching fraternity here in San Diego. Obviously, there's going to be, bickering and upset sometimes, but it is, and I don't know. People who haven't been outside this area probably don't understand it, but the amount of communications from between the coaches in this area, and it's a very big area when you talk about, the South Bay to North County, it's very impressive. Like we have a lot of people communicate. I think it probably wasn't any more evident than when the pandemic started and we're all, getting together, trying to put our heads together, trying to figure out, what the next step is. And I think that's always been something that I've really, been impressed with, which is just the way that the number of coaches that they communicate and share ideas and bounce stuff off ideas. It makes the game better. It makes everybody, everybody wins when ideas are shared and you kind of have that fraternity.
Yeah, when it reminded me, I kind of forgot about this, that back in the 90s, again, summer wasn't as big, but most of us ran like a camp for typically mostly for your school and maybe middle schoolers, coming up, that kind of thing. But I can't remember who gave me the idea, but I did what we called the Camp of Champs. And it was a 5 days. So I had 5 different coaches that won a CF championship, boys or girls, come speak at my camp each day. It was great. Jay came and spoke, and Peggy spoke. Ray Johnson, was El Camino Boys then. But, I had different people come around, and it was awesome. And probably the best thing I ever heard from a camper, one of my kids, was, Coach, he tells us the same thing you tell us every day. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there you go.
That's exactly what I want to hear. Exactly.
That's it. Yeah. And the only question and I would go help them with their camps, wherever they needed. The only question was if you were available or not. It was never like, I don't know if I want to help you. That was never an issue. Never has been.
And I noticed you did, when we talked about club, you did spend a little time with club. You did some stuff with Future Stars. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that was great. That was fun. Only stopped because I became athletic director. That was the thing there. But are you familiar with Fentress Wynn?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Fentress was, at that time, he had started Future Stars for his daughters and a handful of kids. Actually, if I remember the story correct, he was coaching a rec league team in the Vista Park and Rec, and the kids wanted to keep playing. So basically said, well, let's make a club team out of it. And he tried to get some other kids from other teams on, and that kind of thing. Well, he'd been doing that for a year or two, maybe even 3. He came and watched one of my games, and he came and introduced himself and said, hey, we need to talk. We need to do something. And he would not leave me alone. He liked what he saw, obviously. And then in that time, I still try to do this, but not as often. But at that time, I tried to take the girls down to a USD game, a UCSD, and SDSU game every year. We'd go as a group in a van or whatever. And just coincidentally, ran into him at a SDSU game. And he comes up to me and says, Coach, you've got to come talk to me. We want to meet. I got to do this. And in my mind, I'm going, God, if I say yes, maybe he'll leave me alone, because he's just like all over me. And so I said I'd meet him for lunch. We met at this restaurant in Vista, and what was supposed to be an hour lunch turned into like 4 hours. And it was incredible how many things we had in common, our philosophies and views on stuff. And so he said, will you come and help me coach at the club? And I'm like, I don't know if I have time for that. I got this and that. Again, I'm coaching football, basketball, and track at the time. And he says, nah, come on. I said, okay. I go, how about, and he had the club at that time was working at Maricosta College, which is right down the street from Vista High, So I said, and he said, will you bring some players? I said, I'll bring 3 or 4 girls and we'll come watch and they can participate. He said, absolutely, come work out. Okay. So, we get in line doing some stuff, start talking to him. And he I can't remember how he does it. He blows a whistle or something. Anyway, all the kids get across like the baseline or get in lines for like agilities to start. He says, all right, I want to, before we get started, we have a special guest today. And he goes on to this great thing saying about this great coach. And I'm looking around, oh, who's here? What a great night to come. And he says, it's Pat Moromarco from Vista High. I'm like, oh, he put me on the spot.
I'm the special guest.
Yeah. he had me speak to the group just about, working out and working hard kind of thing. I'm like, whoa, I can't believe you did that to me. He says, I knew I had to get you here, And, what'd you think? I thought it was great. The kids loved it. And so I slowly started working bringing my kids in, obviously, and did that for like 4 years. And we progressed. We ended up getting, at one point, I want to say we had 3 full high school teams. He had the job at Bishop's. So when we could, we had a Bishop's team, a Vista team, and like a community team, so to speak. And we mixed the kids all the time, and any time we needed to. There was no issues with that kind of thing. That was really fun. I learned a lot about especially skill work and individual training stuff from him, and got to meet a lot of people. That was a fun time. It's good.
How do you handle being that you don't coach club now? You already mentioned how you understand it's a part of what we do. How do you manage that relationship with your kids now in terms of, off-season program, not other sports? What's your view on the club scene as it goes now?
Well, I think for the kids who want, especially play college, it's a must. They need to do it. And so I strongly encourage those kids to get out there. And I don't know if it's different than other people, but I don't tell them you got to play for this coach or you got to do that. Like my top kids, I've always said that you probably should try to get to EBO. That's going to be the toughest. And I had a girl, Brianna Porter. You remember Brianna?
Yeah, I want to say it was my second year with EBO. We had Bree. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Bree, I tried to get her down there her sophomore and junior, 3 years basically. I kept telling her, Dad, you need to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And I even offered and I've told all the kids this, if they go down there, at least every other week, I will drive you down to practice, whatever it needs to. This would be good for you. That I said that even if she's the 10th player on the team and doesn't play as much, practicing with these kids a couple plays, it's going to make her better. That's what she needs. You're going to be going right at, Destiny Littleton every day. You're going to be going at these kids. This is what you need, And Bree finally did it her last year,
That team she was on was loaded too. We had a lot of talented kids that year. Destiny's last year. We had Caleb Rooks on that team. Ale Aguirre. That was a really, really good team she was on. And she played well. I remember she played really well.
Yeah, so I think it's great. But, there's other kids who aren't really ready for that or have the ability to, I guess you might say. But you got to do something. Get out there and do things. And so if they're in there playing that, I ask, obviously, as soon as I can to get a schedule from them and try to work in, I might pinpoint 1 or 2 tournaments in the summer that we're in and say, can you be at this one for us? Or if there's a conflict. Honestly, there's probably 1, maybe even 2 in all the years, but I can't remember. It's never been a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Just we work together.
The beauty of it is, like you said, with so many coaches that I think it used to be worse before you had a whole lot of high school coaches that coach club, and it was always the pushback. But then there's more. The relationship is definitely. I'd say I've probably been doing this 12, 13 years, and the relationship when I first started with the club coach versus the high school coach is immensely better. I think it's more of a respect on both ways, because it used to be kids would come in the summer, all of a sudden they're disrespecting the high school coach. We're not going to do that in the summer, and blah, blah, blah. And then vice versa. Yeah. The club coaches would always get the reputation of just rolling the balls out. And I think now it's more of an understanding of mutual respect and kind of one hand benefits the other. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest thing is what I see was the June thing. I know club coaches, we don't do the June thing. Let high school coaches have that month. And I think it just, relationships building like that to where, everybody has this, if the goal is aligned to get the kids better, I don't know how, things cannot work out,
Right. Yeah. I hate to say it, but it's kind of, as an athletic director, I deal with lots of, typically what gets in the middle of that is a parent. Yeah. I talked to the club coach. He says, no problem. No, I really think she should, it's like, okay. And obviously I give in to the parent basically. Okay, if it's your daughter, you do play, but just so you know, and I usually got to tell the girl then, okay, hey, this is what your dad wants. Go do that. We'll be fine. We're okay. So I always felt too that if they're not playing basketball, it's not like they ditch just to go hang out at the beach. They're playing, working on their game, and it gives other other kids opportunities to play and get better, and and that kind of thing. That's what I told the other kids. You got to look at this as your chance to play. It's typically almost always worked out benefit for both. Both kids are getting all the playing time, so it's a good thing.
Well, you just mentioned something else that I would like to touch on. Kind of sensitive. Over the course of, again, your experience is something I definitely love to tap into. So evolution again, the relationship with parents. How have you seen that evolution over the course of your career, in terms of maybe involvement was less or more now than it was then, or vice versa? Just, have you seen a change, or is it just kind of perception that's not necessarily reality?
Well, I think it's depends on the situation. With me, I think what has always helped, I'm very honest and upfront. If they have a problem, we can always talk. And I'll be honest with you, unless I know it's a ultra positive conversation coming, I don't like it. And I have to do that all the time as AD or as coach or whatever. But I will say, nobody has left yet ready to swing at me or do anything horrible. That it always ends good, because it's just typically just communication. You got to talk, get things out. And I'm real upfront about why a kid plays or doesn't play, or what they need to do. And I think there's a distinct difference between how they're treated on the court and off the court. As far as some people, as think volume yelling is horrible. And like I've told a couple of parents, I go, I don't, like any coach, you don't get that loud. How are they going to hear you 90 feet away, with a crowd and all that? And they're like, oh, I suppose. And like, other than a young girl, a new girl, freshman, sophomore, or new to the program or whatever, the volume is never the issue. It's not, no, you didn't scare me. That it's like, I got you. I understand. Okay. Yeah. And that's gotten better with my getting older with experience. My patience has gotten better in understanding what's there. I mean, it's crazy. As long as I've been coaching, there's girls who graduated in the early 90s. I mean, they're 40 years old now, and they'll come back. And I've coached 4 of their daughters now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Well, that's very impressive.
And they, you're so nice now. You don't yell at them like you used to. I'm like, well, like, I just had this conversation last year with someone. I said, okay, when you were here, I was 25 years old and I was fired up and we were going to win. I was going to drag you through a wall no matter what it took. And now I understand, effort and, what we're doing and abilities. And also, I'm not going to drag you through there if you don't want to do it. You need to learn how to do this yourself. You need to learn to face challenges and adversity as you get older. That's what I'm trying to get you to do, and I guess that makes some sense, And I said, no. I go, believe me, they hear the same things you do. I just say it in a lower tone, and I do it when they're on the bench next to me, not in front of everybody. That's where the experience comes in. And I suppose you're right.
What about the evolution of the player? We talked about the emergence of club. When you first started coaching, you probably didn't have a whole lot of year-round basketball players, or you probably had more kids that were. I don't want to say it was less competitive, but it's become more of a business for a lot of these. Right. A lot of these parents and kids believe that this is the only way they're going to get to college, so it's like a job for them. Have you noticed that evolution?
Yeah, because like I said, it was rare to have a freshman who actually come up and play on varsity a lot. And in one year, I was, by necessity of graduation, etc., I've had 5 freshmen on the varsity at once. And in obviously as time goes on, I can look back in what I would call a normal average year, probably only 2 of those 5 would have been on varsity. Another year I had 4 of the kids, and probably only 1 might have been varsity in those years. But situations kind of dictate keeping some of them. But also they had enough ability where it wasn't a crazy thing to have them up there, But gosh, that would have been extremely rare, 20 years ago, to have that many that you could even throw out there and be somewhat, competitive.
Yeah, I know, like you talk about, club wasn't even a big thing, even, when I mean, it was big, but it was only for, the quote unquote elite players. And now I remember you would you would get kids. You mentioned it with the freshmen. You would get kids that, stumble in the gym. Hey, I'd like to try this basketball thing out. Nowadays, you got freshmen coming to orientation saying, I'm just giving you their middle school resume saying when's tryouts, coach. You know what I mean? It's that's definitely been a shift.
Now, real quick story. Back in 1991, we had a girl, D'Angela Minter, and she ended up being a 4-year starter for me. She started off and on all 4 years at University of Arizona, played WNBA with a couple teams and that. Incredible. Well, the first day I meet her, she went to a small little private school. So it comes to freshman year, never been in public school. I'm having my basketball meeting at lunch, And I said, hey, how you doing? You here for the basketball? And she says, yes. And I said, all right, what's your name? Yeah, well, grab, I'm a freshman. Okay. And she says immediately, I'm going to go to Stanford on a basketball scholarship. Okay, excuse me? And this is 1991. Stanford was champs. I mean, excuse me, NCAA champs. Yeah, I'm going, do you know what you're talking about? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Okay. And I said, well, you got to have good grades. Oh, I get straight A's, coach. Well, I honestly, I think in all year high school, and she was a honors and AP IB student, all that stuff. She probably had 2 B's her whole time here. So she fit the bill, and she did get offered from Stanford eventually. Ended up going to Arizona, all that. But I mean, it was just like, wow, a kid just come out and say that. I've never had a kid since then say they're going anywhere specific on a basketball school.
Especially Stanford, right?
Yeah, I was like, whoa. Yeah.
So again, tapping into your history, your experience, give me some of the kids, over the course of your career that maybe kept you up night sleeping, kept you from sleeping at night because you were just that, they were that talented, or just some of the best kids that you can remember, just really, that were not necessarily special, because I'm sure you've seen a ton of talented kids. I've seen them just my small time here, but just give me a couple names that just really stand out to you when you look back on it.
Well, it's funny. I don't know what brought this up, but yesterday I was thinking of kind of a similar question about shooting so many threes. And my answer to that is that we shoot about the same percentage on an open three as we do an open 15-footer, 12, 15 feet.
Yes.
So what's the difference to me?
Analytics right there.
Right. Well, people will say, yeah, but you're closer. But when you're shooting a 12, 15-footer, it's usually off a dribble. So it's a pull-up. Yep. So the best pull-up jump shooters basically in my years I've seen was Candace Wiggins, Lower Country Day, Aisha Bowman from RBV, and she went on and played at Colorado, and D'Angela Minter, the girl I had at that time. So that's definitely a skill.
Yes.
To do that. So don't tell me. So I always tell people, you know what, and they don't believe me. And I've actually there was a coach on our campus, not a basketball coach, obviously. I brought him in and showed him our shot chart off a huddle, and said, look, here's the percentages, because it breaks it down, all that stuff. I go, it's within 1 or 2%. That is, we're better off shooting threes, much better, and we work on that every day.
I always tell my kids, the long two, and I'll say, that's the worst shot in basketball. And the kids that have played for me, they'll know. But the newer kids will be like, they'll look confused and they're like, why? And I was like, and then somebody can't wait to say, well, if you're going to shoot it that far, you might as well be behind the line. And it's like, if you're going to shoot that deep, let's get 3 in that too.
Yep. Yeah, it's semantics, I guess. But just inside the 3, I say, is the worst shot in basketball. Yep. The one where their feet are on the line is the stupidest shot in basketball.
Yes, exactly. Watch those feet.
Yeah. Yeah. But those 3 girls are obviously very good. Jay had a guard, Stephanie Garina, I think. Real good player in the 90s. Very, very, very good, obviously. I didn't get to see Kelsey Plum play much because that's in that time when I was kind of out and off from coaching varsity. But Sharday Houston was quite a beast to deal with. We only played Marlon in the summer. We never played in the regular game with her, but geez, unbelievable.
Yeah, when I first started doing this, one of the first things I did is I interviewed her, and it was just mind blowing. Like, just listen to her talk, and then even because I had heard stories from Marlon about her, and Lonnie, when he was there to San Diego, they would always tell me stories, and just having to meet her, she was everything they built her up to be when I got to talk to her. What would you say I mean, this is a really tough one. But what would you say is something that, one of the things that you're most proud of over the course of your career?
Wow. I think kind of the tradition and I know culture's kind of talked about a lot nowadays, almost too much, but what I've been able to do with a lot of help, obviously, and that comes from, me thinking that's a big deal was because we did a alumni game in the summer in 2017 and or 16, so it's 4 years ago, and we did it the last night of summer league. I had refs stay and tell them we're going to do it after the games are played. We're going to play alumni game, etc. We had 24 girls show up, suited up to play. We had 6 more girls who couldn't play because they either had some kind of injury, pregnant, or just felt they were too old to get out there. We had one gal played who was 42 years old.
Wow.
And I tell you, that was one of the funnest nights ever. I was kind of lit up for like 2-3 days. We went out and had some pizza and a few beers afterwards, and it was just great hearing their stories and stuff and what they remember, because it really brings me back to that as a teacher and a coach. You do got to be conscious and watch what you say, because you don't know what they're going to remember, what they take out of it. And these kids came back with things, and I told them right away, I'm not denying I said that. I don't remember that. That's crazy.
Exactly.
And it was mostly funny stuff, but it was like, you told us this. I said, whoa, geez.
It's that you say that because, we had talked about it last year about how cool that would be to do an alumni. One of our former players was helping out with JV, and she had mentioned, wanting to play. And I think I've been a part of programs that they do it. It's always tough when you have kids that are still playing, but the thing that always kills me about it is the competitiveness. Like those alumni don't want to give an inch.
No. And that game was a well-played game. And again, I had not only good teams, but some big girls. Okay, I don't know if you know the name Courtney Bale.
Yeah.
Okay, so Courtney is about 6'3" now, and she was about 6'2" when she played for me. But she's playing in this game, and these girls going, I said, we got to play what we play. I mean, we're going to press them and run them, and we're going to get them tired, and that's our hope and all that. Well, Courtney got a rebound and starts to take up the court herself. It like I said, almost 6'3", and they go to trap her, and she splits the trap, dribbles through her legs, it goes right through them, go by, and they're like, the girls stopped and looked over at me like, I said, I told you she was good, and they're like, but I said, yeah, that, and then she went in for a layup, and one of my, little 5'2" guards is hanging on her arm, like doing a pull up on her arm. It goes up like nothing, lays it in. The ref gives her and one, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it was just incredible. That was very fun, and like I said, the girls had great stories, and just to see that, and our kids are like, wow, you coached all these ladies? I said, yeah. And I go, I hate to tell you, but some of you guys think you're tough. You wouldn't even be in the top 10 on any one of their teams. These girls were tough, and they're like, wow. That, like I said, that was just a real fun night to hear them and talk about everything and what they've gone from there. So many have gone into teaching or coaching too, is real neat to hear. And that was really cool. That was a real fun night.
In the article I read, when you got the award, one of the things you mentioned was the importance of your players coming back, and that's kind of what you're speaking to now. Speak on how what that means and how that's important for. I know we don't want to use the word culture, but for what the program means and having those kids come back and kind of re-emphasize that to your current players.
Yeah, it's awesome. Until the last few years, I've always had lucky to have kids who've graduated come back and help, like coach in the summer league, or come by just to talk to the kids. I typically a couple times a year will call one of them and say, if they're in the area or if they're going to be in the area, will you come speak to the team? And they tell some great stories, and not necessarily game stuff, but not necessarily something I said, but just the way I treated them and what they learned from that and how they've taken that on to through their college and then into their adult life and as a parent and stuff like that is really cool. But some of those girls, it's just amazing to me. that if you put your mind to it, I guess they're great coaches. I've told a couple of girls, I don't know what you need to coach. Like, oh, no. I said, well, Courtney Bale is one of them. She's a, I can't think of what she is now. She's a occupational therapist now. Incredible coach. I let her 2 years ago when we went to the arena and then to the state playoffs. After a couple of games, I had it because once she came and watched the game and saw we're doing well. And I said, we're in the playoffs. You should come around. And she came to, I think she missed one playoff game, but I said, you should come sit on the bench. She's like, really? And she's one of the few that I would allow that to, because believe it or not, I mean, I think this is even weird or in a strange way. She thinks the way I do. I mean, she says things. I mean, I hear some telling the kids, I'm going, I would have used those exact words to tell her how to do that. And she's right on it. And so anytime she's around, I have her on the bench with me. And she's like, well, you know, I keep bugging her, you need to come up and help me. Come by once a week even. Just work with them. Not that I have true post players anymore. We're so small, but just come work with us. Just do something, you know. And she's always great. She's really good with it. Michaela Stanton, who played at Palomar and then on at Brandon University up in Canada, she's around now. She played in Bosnia last year professionally.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she has some great highlight films on YouTube. She did well out there. But she's home now because she can't go back there because of COVID. And if we get to play, she's going to help me out this year. We've been in contact quite a bit lately. So that's great. But it's great for me as a coach because it shows me that our program has made a mark on her, but also to see their emotional growth, I guess you could say, and then their abilities they took from the game, what they learned, and then what they did in college to come back and how to incorporate that back into basically a very similar, if not same system they played in before. Michaela's another one's great. Just right on with my thinking a lot, which I think that's good. That might be scary for them as they get older.
Well, it definitely means that you left your mark and you put your fingerprints on them. I want to get your perspective, with your AD experience, and again with your coaching experience.
Sure.
What's your perspective on the prospects of the season coming forward? Kind of where's your sense of where we're headed, or your optimism level headed into as we 3-4 months away from our potential start date?
Yeah, 3 or 4 months at least, probably. I mean, it just. I'll tell you one thing we'll end on the positive stuff. On the negative side, these people who keep thinking that we should just play right now, and they're bringing in numbers and stats from other states, but none of those states, their average per COVID sickness is even close to ours. So it's comparing apples and oranges. I do, and also the fact that Vista Unified, our district is, I think, the only districts tried to bring everybody back
in person.
Gotcha. Yeah, and we couldn't do it. We opened up October 20th, I believe, or 21st, whatever it was. We were open less than a week, and Mission Vista had 2 kids come down. The second week, we had 1, and so. And what's sad about this, because of our scheduling, what we do is on Mondays, we go to all 6 classes, a traditional day, we call it. Then we have block days. Well, if you're on a traditional day, you're seeing 6 teachers and 6 different groups of kids. Well, that's the day they discovered these kids were sick. So you had to quarantine. It was 200 plus kids and 6 teachers each time that happened. Mm-hmm. And
serious tracing right there.
Yeah, the tracing thing's huge. The nurses have been huge. And then if they're athletic related, I'm part of that tree with admin, and it's a ton of work. Those people the nurses are just been outstanding for going through all that stuff. And so it got to a point now, what I was saying with COVID, in general, all the district subs, people don't want to work. Someone in our district told me that in a normal year, our district is 3, regular comprehensive high schools, a couple of continuation schools, and then 6 middle schools, and I believe like 24 elementaries. So it's 35 campuses or whatever it is. We usually have 300 subs. Right now, less than 100 are willing to work under these conditions. So as I just mentioned, you've got the example at Mission Vista, you have 2 teachers out and almost 400 kids, or you have, 12 teachers out, 6 kids. Our school we have 6 teachers and 200 kids out. There's not enough subs for this. RBV didn't get hit till about 2 weeks later. Then they had to shut down. We all closed for 12 days, go online. We come back again. We didn't last 4 days and more. And the district came up with a formula from, I believe it's from New York, that any one school has 3 COVID cases, you got to shut down for 10 days. Well, we were opening and closing the 3 high schools every couple of weeks. And then they realized they can't afford all the subs and all, it came into obviously a financial issue. And I think that's what the one thing people are missing, that I would love for the kids to come back. It'd be great for them. There's no doubt about it, but you cannot have any kind of leagues or sports without adults. The adults are getting sick. Those are the numbers that are so high, not the students. I mean, I know we've talked about that.
Those are the ones they're going to have the risk factors. They're going to be older, potentially out of shape, all of those, pre-existing conditions. So, it's yeah.
And then let's say we do get to play. You just described most referees, right? The majority are a little older. It's their second job. I don't want to question their health. I don't know. But, I know I've talked to them. Last spring, I was on a committee for North County Conference and CIF looking at that. And I contacted the basketball officials, the football officials, the softball. I can't remember who responded, baseball or water polo. But, talking to them, and they're like, I don't know how many guys are going to come work. We'll have to see.
I don't even think that's something people have even thought about, was officials.
Right. Well, a friend of mine mentioned that to me when I said officials. He said, well, what about the other people? I said, what do you mean? We got officials, coach, players. Well, what about like at a football game? Granted, if we don't have people coming, you don't have ticket takers, but you still have to have a sideline crew for the chain gang. You got to have an announcer, a timekeeper, the scoreboard operator. A lot of people aren't just saying, I'll come out and go to be around a bunch of kids for that, or just get outside, it's a lot. In a basketball game, you got to have at least a very talented person, if it's one, to do a shot clock and a scoreboard at the same time.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
So I mean, there's a lot of things involved, which and granted, parents are thinking for their kids, which we would expect them to,
Mm-hmm.
And some of these other people, they're not realizing that there's so many adults involved that they're just not enough willing to take that risk. I do think, I think on the positive side that we could play. I don't agree with the color tiering system, because I saw this back in May. And the state CIF said they took this from the NFHS, which did this in May. I think, I could be wrong, as you know, I'm not a doctor, but what I've seen is they've kind of dispelled a lot of the indoor-outdoor stuff. If it's open and well ventilated and all that kind of stuff, there's really not much of a difference. So to say we can't play basketball or volleyball is kind of silly. Mm-hmm. I do understand wrestling, because you're a lot of contact rubbing on each other, and football, same. But a lot of the other stuff, I don't see that being that big a risk.
I'm curious about when you guys were back. How did the testing work? How readily available was testing? How often were kids getting tested?
Again, public school, we can't require them to get tested.
That's why I was curious, because I know.
Yeah. So
I talked to Marlon about it. I talked to Marlon about it, Bishops, and their private school, they're testing once a week. So that's why when you said that, you had some positives. So these are just kids that got tested on their own and found out they were positive.
Well, yeah, from what I understand, I've talked to 2 kids who were sick, but none of the parents. But talking to our admin team, parents have called in and said, yeah, Susie wasn't feeling good, so we took her to the doctor, or took her right to a COVID test, and then boom, that was it. So we got to go back on the tracing, and all that stuff. So, it's been tough, because as teachers, they started out, they told us they wanted us tested every 2 months. And now it's come back. I got the email yesterday afternoon that every 6 weeks now. So it's a little smaller, but I think, and then they're hopeful that teachers will get the vaccine end of February, because we're in that next list, but I don't want to be negative about it, but I'll believe that when I see that, mm-hmm. that when they can get that out publicly to everybody, because then it'll truly be, if the adults are all inoculated, if the kids think
Comfort
that
level.
that small, then we can play. Then we can start doing stuff.
So
we'll
let's speak it into existence. We're in March.
Yep.
COVID is gone. What does it take? What does a successful season for the Vista Panthers look like? What kind of things are happening for you guys to play well this year?
Well, for us to have a successful season, I think you're aware, I graduated most of my team. I had a great group of seniors last year. So we're going to be young and very inexperienced at the varsity level. I'll have 4 girls who saw any kind of varsity time at all, coming back. So I think if we can, come and stay injury or COVID free together and work hard and be competitive, we'll be all right. We moved into a real tough league this year. So not going to count wins or losses at this point, but just we can get out and battle and do that. I think we'll be fine. But scoring's going to be an issue, I think. So like I said, lost a lot of scoring. So
give me a player or two that, looking to maybe have a breakout year or maybe turn some heads this year.
A junior, a sophomore last year, Lacey Silva, I think good. She hit 20 to 25 threes last year in some limited time, but like a lot of kind of streaky shooter, but she also has the ability to go to the basket. She's left-handed, and I think she could have a great year for us. I'm really counting on her to do something there. And possibly a gal named Haley Garcia. Haley's a triplet, actually. She has an identical twin sister and a brother triplet.
Wow. I have a triplet on my team. She has 2 twin brothers. So it's weird. It's weird. I know, exactly. I'm always asking. I'm just so intrigued. I'm always asking her questions about it. It's so intriguing to me.
Well, I grew up with identical twin sisters. So
wow.
I'm not that fascinated by it, but I talked to both. Her sister is a wrestler, and she's a good wrestler. She got I think she was CIF champ at her weight class last year.
Oh, wow.
And she went to state. So, yeah, good wrestler. So Haley is a tough kid. She's going to be all over the place, all over the floor. It's funny. One of the things that sticks out with me with her, she's always the first girl out in the break, runs her butt off. I think she's like cherry picking half the time. She just and one of the boys' coaches said to me, he says, "Coach, you got to get her out there more." I said, "Well," I go, "she has a lot of issues sometimes with handling the ball, turnover-wise and stuff. But no, I love her aggressive." He goes, "Coach, she's the only one who knows how to run a break. Watch her. She just goes, And I go, "Yeah." I go, "It's before the shot goes up, passes me."
That's good.
But
so I would like to wrap it up with 5 questions,
sure.
Lighthearted stuff. So we'll start with give me your all-time favorite coach.
All-time favorite coach. Wow. Well, as I think I said in that Instagram thing, Corey Close, it'd be her or Gino, I think, just for the way, very distinct personalities, but I really love them.
Definitely distinct personalities. Yeah. And how about your all-time favorite player?
All-time favorite player. I think I told you before, Gail Goodrich, and I really like that one. Probably my next one.
Very underrated. Very, very underrated.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of people don't really know how good he was, but probably next, honestly, is just LeBron's really, he's always great. I've always liked him. But, being a Laker fan and watching him up close the last 2 years, he's incredible. And probably more impressive is the way his type of person he is off the court and his intellect. And he's a sharp dude. He's a great man. Love him.
Definitely a one-on-one. How about your favorite meal? Any meal that you could have, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't remember what I said on that one, but I like a good steak and garlic mashed potatoes for sure.
I think that's the same thing Bob said. So you guys might have to get together and share one.
Okay. Yeah, you know what? I watched that. I think he did say that.
Yeah, I think he did say that. And then a dream vacation.
Dream vacation. I love the Caribbean. I think I put down St. Lucia, and I was able to go there 2 years ago.
Awesome.
Unbelievable. I've been to Jamaica as well. I just love that. Hawaii too. Different areas, but same kind of thing. But I just love the Caribbean. Love it down there.
Well, Coach, this was awesome. Again, I had never really had the opportunity to sit down with you like this. definitely had been a fan, especially the last couple of years, having a chance to watch you guys play at a couple of events. This was extremely informative. Like I said, you have a wealth of knowledge and experience. And I know one of the things that I like to do this for is for the people who are watching to learn something, to pick up something, to get a perspective. Again, we talked about earlier, the coaching community and sharing ideas and just how, especially in this crazy time where everybody's trying to deal with this, the crazy thing in the world, in our country, and with this pandemic. Just, I think one of the benefits of this is letting other people kind of feel or hear someone saying the same thoughts or feelings that they're having. And I think this is definitely one of those. This is extremely beneficial and, like I said, informational for me. So I really want to thank you for your time. Like I told Bob, whenever I interview somebody, I reserve the right to now hit you up for some advice, some plays, talk some X's and O's with you, and maybe still a couple of quick hitters that I could add to my arsenal.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I've watched all these, and I think honestly, you've gotten better every time, I think.
That's the goal. Thank you, Coach. That's the goal.
No, it's been really good. And I loved the first one with the El Cap coaches, because he said the same thing I'm feeling about, his son wants to do a schedule and plan practices right now. And I'm like, you know what?
It's funny. Dylan, he hit me up yesterday about some stuff. So I know he's raring to go. So absolutely.
Yeah. So it's with my experience, I've learned I don't need to rush through things. I have my time to prepare, and I think I usually do a good job preparing things, and I'll be ready when I get there. I don't need to get it all done now. And that's one thing I try to get across to all the young and new coaches at the high school. Settle down. Not everything's in a hurry, especially right now. We've got time. Give me some questions. We can talk every day if we need to. Email me or whatever. You don't have to do this all in one day. Just relax and build from there, So
it's so funny you say that, because that's exactly what I was trying to do, this time a year ago, trying to, year one, try to have all the answers and, calling people. And like you said, just if I could go back and just do year one over again, that's the number one thing, is just to relax and enjoy every moment. And just like you said, not try to go full speed on everything, and kind of let stuff soak in.
The best advice I got when I went and saw, because one of the times that I saw it, I've gone back to see Gino a couple of times, once at UConn, but I saw him in Chicago at a championship coaches clinic with, it was just him and Bobby Knight. That was awesome. And we got to meet them, take a picture with them and all that kind of stuff. But Bobby Knight said something great that I was trying to do, and he really enforced doing it, is especially the longer you coach, is obviously you have your system and some set fundamentals, but you need to just be some basic things and then be real good at that, and then tweak them as you play people. Like his example of that was on inbound plays. You say you run a 1-2-2 inverted, obviously, on the ball, and then you go off that. You can adjust. Sometimes as a shooter, you play man or whatever, but that's your base thing. And anytime a new kid gets in the game, they know you're doing that. And I said, gosh, that's what I was looking at specifically, what I needed. And he's pumped that in my head. And that's, I try to stick very basic with things, and I had a coach tell me, well, you do this all the time, I said, well, I go, but it works, doesn't it? Or we beat you with it. And he's like, yeah, you're right. No.
It's like they say about the restaurants that only have 2 or 3 things on the menu, right? Those are the places they only make 2 or 3 things, but they make them really, really well.
Really good. Yeah.
They have a line. They usually have a line around the corner to get in and get those 2 or 3 things that they make really well.
Absolutely.
So, Coach, hey, again, I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate your time. Like I said, I hope to see you on a court really, really soon. And again, thanks for sharing all your wisdom and knowledge with everybody who watches this. I can't thank you enough. You have a great afternoon, a great evening.
Great. Thank you. You too. I appreciate you for having me. Thank you.